My parents banned my kids from Christmas. Hours later, my sister posted, "Finally a calm party without Melinda's children who ruin everything." I liked it and commented, "Lovely. Rent payments and all financial help cancelled. Well, let's go." My name is Meridia Holston and I'm 34 years old. I work as a senior marketing manager at a tech company in Asheboro, North Carolina, and honestly I make pretty decent money. But my life isn't exactly a fairy tale. A little over a year ago I divorced my husband Jaron. We were together for 11 years, married for 10, and we have 2 amazing sons together. Merrick is 9 years old and little Davin just turned 6. The divorce wasn't dramatic or scandalous. We just grew apart, wanted different things, stopped being a team. Now I'm raising the boys on my own, and it's hard, but we manage. Jaron used to work as an engineer at a manufacturing plant. For years everything was stable. He paid good child support. We split expenses for the kids 50/50ths, and he took them every other weekend. But about 6 months ago his company started having problems. Layoffs, budget cuts, the whole nightmare. Jaron's hours got reduced, his salary dropped, and suddenly the child support payments became laughable. Instead of $1,720 a month, I started getting $300 or $400, sometimes less. I tried talking to him about it, but what could I do? He was struggling too. His parents helped him out, and I appreciated that they were there for him and the boys. My parents, Reginald and Marin, live about 40 minutes away in a suburb. My dad is retired from the postal service, and my mom worked as a school secretary until she retired 5 years ago. They have a nice house, nothing fancy but comfortable. My younger sister, Talise, is 31. She's been married to her husband, Branford, for 7 years, and they have 3 kids. Ilara is 8, Talone is 6, and little Sorel is 4. Talise works part-time as a receptionist at a dental office, and Branford does something with insurance sales. They've always struggled with money, and I've always helped them out. For years I've been the family bank. Need $240 for groceries. Call Meridia. Car broke down and you need $540 for repairs. Meridia will handle it. Want to take the kids to Disneyland but short $3,800. Good old Meridia will come through. And I did every single time because that's what family does, right? You help each other out. My parents would call, my sister would text, and I'd transfer the money. Sometimes they paid me back, but mostly they didn't. I never pushed it. I figured I made more money than them, so it was my responsibility to help. But everything changed 6 months ago when Jaron's income dropped. Suddenly, I was the sole provider for my household. And it hit me hard. I was paying the mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, medical bills for Davin's asthma, school expenses, after-school activities, and still sending money to my family every month. I was hemorrhaging cash and my savings were disappearing fast. That's when I decided to open a separate account specifically for Merrick and Davin's education fund. College is expensive and I wanted to make sure they'd have opportunities one never had. So, I started putting away $1,200 every month into that account. It meant cutting back on helping my family, but my kids had to come first. The requests from my parents and Talise didn't stop though. If anything, they got bigger. What used to be $200 or $300 turned into $500, then $1,000. My sister Talise called me every month asking for $1,700 for her rent, every single month. And I paid it because I didn't want her kids to end up homeless. On top of that, there were constant requests for other things. New tires, birthday party expenses, emergency dental work, you name it. I was drowning in their financial needs while barely keeping my own head above water. 2 weeks before Christmas, my parents called and asked me to come over for a family meeting. Talise was already there when I arrived. We sat in the living room and my mom served coffee and cookies like this was some pleasant social visit. Then my dad cleared his throat and said they had something important to discuss. My mom smiled and said they decided to do something special this Christmas. Instead of the usual party at their house, they wanted to rent a big cottage in the mountains and spend 3 days there as a family, all of us together. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I thought it sounded nice, actually. Then Talise pulled out her laptop and showed me the place they'd found. It was gorgeous. A massive log cabin with 6 bedrooms, a huge kitchen, a stone fireplace, hot tub on the deck, the works. I asked how much it cost, and the room went quiet. My dad looked at my mom. My mom looked at Talise. Finally Talise said, $13,600 for 3 nights. Then all 3 of them turned and looked at me expectantly. Actually laughed. I thought they were joking. $13,600 for a Christmas vacation. Were they insane? I told them there was absolutely no way I could afford that. I said I could maybe contribute $1,700, but that was it. My mom's face fell. My dad looked annoyed. Talise actually rolled her eyes and said I shouldn't cry poverty. She said I had a great job and a stable salary and I could easily afford to split this with them. Split it. They expected me to pay the entire thing. I reminded them that I'd told them 6 months ago about starting the education fund for my boys. I explained again that Jaren's child support had dropped to almost nothing and I was supporting my household alone now. Every penny counted. Talise leaned back in her chair and gave me this smug look. She said, "If my money situation was so terrible, how did I manage to go to resorts 3 times this year?" I felt my face get hot. I explained very carefully that those weren't vacations. Davin has asthma, bad asthma. He needs medication, regular doctor visits, and his pulmonologist recommended spending time in mountain air and near the ocean for his lungs. Those trips were medical, not recreational. We stayed in modest places near treatment facilities and spent our days at doctor's appointments and breathing therapy sessions, not lounging on beaches. The room went silent after that. My dad muttered something about not realizing it was that serious. My mom looked uncomfortable. Talise didn't say anything else. I thought maybe they finally understood that I wasn't just being stingy. I thought we'd moved past it. I left that day believing they got it. But I was wrong. So incredibly wrong. 2 days before Christmas, I had just put Merrick and Davin to bed. They'd been excited about Christmas, talking about seeing their grandparents and cousins, asking if Grandma would make her special hot chocolate. I was cleaning up the kitchen when my phone buzzed on the counter. Text from my mom. I opened it, expecting maybe a question about what time to arrive on Christmas Eve or what dishes I should bring. Instead, I read the message 3 times because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It said that this year I should come to the Christmas party without my children. Just me alone. The boys should stay home with a babysitter. I stood in my kitchen staring at my phone, reading that message over and over. Come without the children. Leave them with a babysitter for Christmas. Our family Christmas. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My hands were shaking as I hit the call button. My mom answered on the second ring. Her voice all bright and cheery like she hadn't just sent me the most insane text message of my life. I asked her what the hell that message meant. She immediately got defensive and told me not to react so sharply. She said I could come to the party alone and leave the boys with a sitter. It wasn't a big deal. Nothing terrible would happen if my children missed one family holiday this year. One holiday. Like it was nothing. Like Christmas wasn't the biggest family event of the year. Like my sons didn't spend weeks looking forward to seeing their grandparents and cousins and opening presents under Grandma's tree. Asked her why. Why would she ask me to leave my kids at home on Christmas? And that's when she said it. She said, "Your children constantly ruin things at all the holidays. They're too active and noisy. At the last few family parties, they ran all over the house and bothered the adults. Everyone was tired of them. Everyone." I couldn't breathe. I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I forced them back because I was too angry to cry. I told her that was complete garbage. My boys were quiet and well-behaved. Yes, they played and ran around, but they weren't the only ones. They played with Talise's kids. Elara and Talon and Sorel were right there with them, running through the house, playing tag, being loud. All the kids together. So I asked her point blank if Talise's children were invited to Christmas. And my mom said, "Of course they were. They'll be there because they are calm and well-behaved children." Actually laughed. I couldn't help it. Calm and well-behaved. Talise's kids. I reminded my mom that last Christmas. It was Talon who knocked over the entire Christmas tree. The whole thing came crashing down. Ornaments shattered everywhere. Water from the tree stand flooded the hardwood floor. But my mom immediately said that was an accident. Just an accident. Boys will be boys. I pointed out that when my kids did anything wrong, it was never just an accident. It was evidence that they were uncontrollable monsters who ruined everything. Then my mom dropped the real bomb. She said she and my dad had already arranged everything with Talise. Already arranged. This wasn't a last-minute decision. They'd planned this probably weeks ago. They'd sat down with my sister and decided together that my children weren't welcome at Christmas anymore. And nobody thought to discuss it with me until 2 days before the holiday. I told her I understood perfectly what was happening and I hung up. I sat down at my kitchen table and just stared at the wall for a while. My mind was racing. This wasn't really about my kids being too loud or too wild. This was punishment. Revenge for refusing to pay for that stupid mountain cottage. For saying no to their constant demands for money. For finally putting my own children first instead of funding their lifestyle. And they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew I would never go to a family holiday without my sons. Never. So this invitation was really a disinvitation. They were telling me not to come without actually saying it. I thought about all the money I'd given them over the years. Tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more. I'd never kept exact track, never thrown it in their faces, never demanded repayment. And right now, at this very moment, I was still sending Talise $1,700 every single month for her rent, not counting all the other little transfers. $120 here, $380 there, $560 for this emergency, $260 for that crisis. It never stopped. I remembered how it started small. A couple hundred here and there, then it grew. 500 became normal, then 1,000. And lately, they'd been asking for several thousand at a time. The cottage rental was just the latest and biggest request. But I'd said no, and this was the consequence. I was being frozen out. My children were being rejected and insulted. And I was supposed to just accept it. I thought back over the past 2 weeks, and suddenly things that hadn't seemed significant before clicked into place. After that meeting about the cottage, I'd asked my parents to babysit the boys 3 different times. They'd always helped me out before. Always been happy to have their grandsons over. But all 3 times they'd refused. They were busy. They had plans. They weren't feeling well. Excuses. And I'd thought nothing of it at the time. Now it seemed obvious. They were already distancing themselves from my children. And another thing. Every year my parents asked me what gifts Merrick and Davin wanted for Christmas. They'd make lists, shop carefully, get things the boys actually wanted. This year they never asked. When I brought it up, my mom said they'd just buy something they thought was appropriate. Something appropriate. Not something the boys wanted. Not something that would make them happy. Just whatever my parents decided was good enough for the grandchildren they apparently couldn't stand having around anymore. The day before Christmas, I was getting the boys ready for bed when my phone buzzed with a notification from our family group chat. The one with my parents, Talise and Branford, my aunt and uncle, and a few cousins. I opened it and saw that Talise had posted a photo. The living room in our parents' house was decorated like a magazine spread. Lights everywhere, garland draped over every surface and a massive Christmas tree right in the center, easily 8 feet tall, covered in ornaments and ribbons. Below the photo, Talise had written a message. She said this year they were going to have an excellent Christmas. A calm party without Meridia's children who constantly ruined everything. My mom commented immediately, agreeing. She wrote that it was true and she and Dad would finally get to rest from those restless, noisy children. Those restless, noisy children. My sons. Her grandsons. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. I stared at that post and something inside me just snapped. All the anger and hurt from the past 2 weeks, hell from the past year, came flooding out. My hands were steady as I typed. I wasn't going to yell or curse or lose control. I was going to hit them where it hurt. I liked the post first just to make sure they saw that I'd seen it. Then I wrote my comment. I congratulated everyone on the upcoming Christmas and complimented how magnificently Talise had decorated our parents' house. And then I added that starting immediately, I was canceling the rent payment and all other financial assistance to my family effective right now. I hit send and watched the chaos unfold in real time. The chat exploded. Cousins started commenting, asking what was going on. What rent payment? What financial assistance? My aunt wrote 3 question marks. My uncle asked my parents what this meant. Nobody knew. 4 years, I'd been quietly funding my sister's life and my parents' extras. And nobody in the extended family had any idea. I'd never mentioned it, never complained about it, never used it as leverage. Till now. My phone started ringing immediately. Mom, declined. Dad, declined. Talise, declined. They called back and back and back. Then the text messages started pouring in. Mom begging me to answer. Dad demanding I call him immediately. Talise saying we needed to talk right now. I read them all and didn't respond to a single one. Then I just turned my phone off completely. About an hour later, I turned my phone back on to check something and saw that Talise had deleted her photo and comment from the group chat. Too late though. Everyone had already seen it. My phone showed 20 missed calls and 30 text messages. I ignored all of them. I went to bed feeling lighter than I had in months. I'd gotten up early that morning and told Marek and Davin we were going on an adventure. We were going to have Christmas somewhere different this year. They were confused at first, disappointed about not seeing Grandma and Grandpa, but I told them we'd have even more fun. We packed bags and drove 3 hours to Jaren's parents' house. My ex-in-laws. They were thrilled to have us. They'd always loved me, even after the divorce, and they adored their grandsons. We had a wonderful Christmas Eve with them. Meanwhile, my phone kept blowing up. My parents and Talise wouldn't stop. Text messages, voice messages, missed calls. I finally listened to some of the voicemails. Mom crying, saying I was overreacting. Dad angry, saying I was being childish and needed to grow up. And Talise, her messages were something else. She said she hadn't done anything wrong. It wasn't her fault she had good children and I had bad, ill-mannered ones. She said my kids deliberately ruined things and last Christmas they'd spilled juice on the carpet and broken her smartphone. That message made my blood boil. Had enough. I opened the family group chat and wrote that I was going to publicly respond to Talise's accusations. Everyone needed to hear the truth. I explained that at last year's Christmas party, Marek had been holding a glass of cherry juice when Talone ran up and deliberately pushed him. The juice went everywhere, all over the light-colored carpet. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't Marek being careless. He was pushed by Talone, who thought it was funny, and I had proof. My cousin Jessa had been filming all the kids on her phone that day. The whole thing was on video. You could clearly see Talone running at full speed and shoving Marek, who was just standing there. The juice went flying. I said I still had that video if anyone wanted to see it. As for the smartphone, I wrote the real story. Talise had approached the kids herself and handed them her phone. All the kids, not just mine. She told them they could play games on it. Ilara, Talone, Sorel, Marek, and Davin all took turns. Some point the phone got dropped and the screen cracked. Talise immediately blamed my son specifically. I reminded everyone that I'd bought Talise a brand new phone after that incident. $2,200 for the latest iPhone. She'd refused to let me just pay for a screen repair. She insisted she needed a completely new phone. And like an idiot, I'd agreed and paid for it. One of my cousins immediately commented that it seemed like Talise had done that on purpose to get a new phone. That comment got 12 likes within minutes. Then I wrote that I would no longer be providing any financial assistance to my family. And I posted screenshots, bank statements from the past year showing every transfer I'd made. $1,700 to Talise every month for rent. Another $540 here, $860 there, $1,100 for this, $2,300 for that. The numbers added up fast. In 1 year, I'd sent them over $34,000. The comments came fast. My aunt said she'd had no idea. My uncle said he was shocked. Several cousins said my parents and especially Talise should be ashamed asking a single mother for so much money. My mom replied angrily that I had no right to share this information, that I disgraced them publicly. More relatives piled on, saying the only disgraceful thing was how they treated me and my children. I left the group chat after that. I was done. For several days, there was complete silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. Merrick and Davin had a wonderful time with Jaren's parents. We opened presents, ate too much food, watched Christmas movies, and the boys played in the snow. They didn't ask about my parents once. Maybe they sensed something was wrong, or maybe they were just having too much fun to care. Either way, I was grateful for the peace. On New Year's Eve, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. She'd sent a photo of a cake decorated with sparklers and 2 wrapped presents. The message said she'd prepared this for the boys and she and Dad would be waiting for them at the house. Like nothing had happened. Like she could just erase everything with cake and gifts. I wrote back immediately. We didn't need their cake or their gifts. We wouldn't be coming over. We'd be celebrating New Year's with our real family. The calls and messages started up again after that. My mom called 5 times in 1 hour. My dad left voicemails saying we needed to talk like adults. Talise sent texts saying I was being dramatic and ruining the family. I ignored most of it, but eventually I decided maybe I did need to talk to my parents. Just my parents, not Talise. I sent them a message saying they could come to my house on a specific day and time. We talked then. When they arrived, I had the boys at a friend's house. I didn't want them hearing this conversation. My parents sat on my couch looking uncomfortable. My dad started to speak, but I held up my hand. I told them I would talk first and they would listen. I said they were my parents and I love them. I wasn't going to abandon them completely, but things were going to change drastically. I told them I could help them financially with up to $680 per month. That was it. And only if the expense seemed genuinely important to me. Not what they thought was important. What I thought was important. And they'd need to send me receipts afterward, proving the money went where they said it would. My dad opened his mouth to argue, but I kept going. As for Talise, that was finished. I wouldn't be paying her rent anymore. She was an adult with a husband and a job. She could figure out her own finances. My mom immediately brought up the rent, saying Talise needed that money. I told her the subject was closed. If they brought it up again, I'd end the conversation and they could leave. My mom looked at my dad. He looked at the floor. Then I told them the most important rule. If they ever insulted or rejected my children again, even once, I would cut them out of my life completely. No second chances, no explanations needed. 1 strike and they were done. My sons deserved grandparents who loved them and wanted them around. If my parents couldn't be those grandparents, then we didn't need them in our lives at all. The room was silent for a long moment. My mom started crying. She said she was sorry. She said things had gotten out of hand and they'd let Talise influence them too much. My dad admitted they'd become too dependent on my money and had started expecting it instead of being grateful for it. He said excluding the boys from Christmas was wrong and he regretted it. I told them I appreciated the apology, but words didn't mean much anymore. I needed to see actual change in their behavior. They agreed to my terms, all of them. We talked for another hour, setting clear boundaries. I told them about the education fund I was building for Merrick and Davin. I explained that my children's future came before anyone else's wants. They said they understood. When they left, I felt exhausted but relieved. At least now everything was out in the open. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I brought the boys to my parents' house once a week for Sunday dinner. My mom and dad have been genuinely wonderful with them. They ask about school, play games, help with homework. They ask the boys what they want for their birthdays. They plan activities together. I can see that they're really trying and that they're honestly happy to spend time with their grandsons. Talise and I haven't spoken since Christmas. I heard through my aunt that she and Branford had to move to a cheaper apartment because they couldn't afford their rent without my help. I don't feel guilty about it, not even a little bit. As for my bank account, the education fund is growing steadily. Every month, I deposit that $1,700 that used to go to Talise, plus the extra money I'm not sending for random emergencies. In 3 months, I've added over $6,800 to the fund. Merrick and Davin are happy. They have their grandparents back, but better versions who actually appreciate them. They have their mom who isn't stressed and resentful all the time. And they have a future that's more secure because I finally put them first. That's all that matters. My family is smaller now, but it's healthier. And I'm not anyone's ATM anymore.